are certain conversations that are not conversation starters at gatherings or events. Conversations like sex, religion, politics. Today's episode, we'll be discussing two of those topics and we'll be discussing them together. And they are sex and religion. Well, this whole show is about sex, so sex has to be number one, then religion. And I have with me here a friend, Aaron Ugede. And the reason why I actually had him come as a guest is because, aside from the fact that he's learned, it's not a compliment, I'm just stating fact. Aside from the fact that he's very, very learned, he reads.
Fan of myself.
We've also had this conversation before, and there were some views that I believe should come and should be shared. So, Aaron.
Yes, Ebele.
Sex and religion. Why are Nigerians so, not even, private is not the word, secretive about it? Like, when you bring up such things, it's a taboo. They're like taboo topics. Why do you think that is in our setting?
So for starters, I would say it's not just Nigeria.
Okay.
There's a number of places around the world where sex is such a conservative subject. It's a don't talk about it only in harsh terms kind of thing. But I don't think it should be. My approach to sex is, like I used to say back then, I said, if I cannot talk about sex with someone, I cannot date that person. Not to talk of even going as far as marriage, So the whole idea is it should be a conversation that is easy to have, right? In Nigeria, particularly, we find that religion is a very, very major issue for a lot of people. In practice, we find that, religion and their lives may be different, but when it comes to sex, everyone is very hush-hush about it.
Yeah.
I find this weird because I said, for most religions, it is agreed that God ordained sex.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's procreation.
That's
the
procreation,
only way
pretty much. Yeah. So if sex was set up by God himself, why are we so hush-hush about it?
And if we are even not sure that that's it, it's a natural thing because we are not the only ones, humans are not the only ones that partake in it.
Exactly.
Animals do, insects do, so
All creatures do.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it's weird how it's shamed. Do you understand? And then when you now decide to have that conversation, you're looked like the devil. Like evil just walked in.
The devil incarnate, eh?
Exactly. So now there are certain things that are stigmas, and actually not even certain. Like 90% of sex topics are stigmas. So some people, the medical people, would say, okay, masturbation, learn your body, so that if there are rubs and tumbles, growths, whatnot, you'll be able to tell. If there's a smell, you'll be able to know, you'll be able to perceive it. Because if you're checking yourself, you can tell the natural smell and you can tell the unnatural. You can also know how, for a woman, the discharge should be if it's a certain color and a certain time, that's normal. But if you're not looking at these things, you wouldn't know, right? Yeah. But if a typical religious mother walks into a girl using a mirror to look at herself, you can already imagine. Or if maybe I think maybe this is something that you can relate. The first time a young boy in a religious family gets a wet dream,
it's usually something harrowing, I guess. But so I had the privilege of having a very open father. My father was very open. In fact, conversations I could have with my father, I would be shy of having with my mother. So I remember when I had a crush on my teacher, Miss Morgan.
That's very normal, by the way.
She's Canadian, red-haired woman, really pretty. And so I sit in class there, and she's teaching home economics, and you'd think I was the most attentive student. I was just staring at her. I wasn't hearing a single thing she was saying. And so I went home and I told my dad, and I said, Dad, I think I'm in love with my teacher. And And so he said to me, he said, that's normal. He says, your body's changing. I'm like, really? He's like, yep, happens to everybody. And so he took me through the whole puberty talk. And so now I tease other younger kids. I'm like, when you hit puberty, we'll have this conversation, But the reason for doing that is so that they're comfortable to be able to come to you if they need to have a conversation around sex, because otherwise we chase them away.
You're laying the foundation.
Yeah, exactly. We chase them away and they go and look for those answers elsewhere, and it could be in the wrong places. So I'd rather make it easy for them to bring it up than be all taboo and say, no, that is right, don't talk about it. No. I'd rather have a child of mine come to me and say, Daddy, what is sex? And then I will walk you through it my way and guide you to the point where you know what it is, than to say, hey, stop talking about how old are you, blah, 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 blah. Nah.
So coming on to the responsibility part, which I think is very, very key. Do you, I know my response to this, but do you think that sex education should be conversations or topics to be taught in like a religious setting? When I say religion, I mean like, how you have Sunday school and stuff like that. So to have a curriculum that teaches this, but not to frighten the children, but them to be aware and then now make them become responsible. Because for you to know this, you would understand the consequences that come from certain actions, not necessarily to frighten them, but okay, so this is happening to you, this is what is expected, this is for you to make informed decisions. Do you understand?
What's the order in the Bible, or in almost every religion, is that the fathers will come before the children, and the fathers are intended to transfer knowledge to the children, who would transfer to their children, and then there's that order of transfer. And if there's that order of transfer, then it is not appropriate for parents to delegate the order of transfer to outsiders, where you say, I cannot talk about it. Someone will talk about it with the children if you don't talk about it with them. Someone will. So in the order of transfer, it is appropriate that this be included in the curricula for children, so that not only are they being taught at home, but that their minds are being stimulated to ask the correct questions that their parents can attend to when they return home. So if you include sex education in the curricula for, say children, for instance, it doesn't mean that you start talking about copulation, because sex education is much more than copulation. It is first of all the understanding of their bodies and how it changes, those changes, how to deal with it,
And I remember breaking it down, breaking it down based on age brackets.
Yes.
So you start with
of course, preteens, teenagers. So I remember the first time that I started growing hair in my pubic areas, and I was very uncomfortable with it. We went to a neighbor's house, my friend Simon. We were to have his birthday, and then it was time to swim, and I refused to take my clothes off because my body had changed and I was finding it weird. I'm like, I can't let people see this, But it was nothing to be worried about, And
another thing to also note, which I think is very pertinent, is the fact that a lot of people see their religious houses as a refuge. Do you understand? So they believe that they would learn these things and they'll be safe and everything here. Things that they cannot say home. Maybe it's not a safe home, or they don't have so it depends on the class the person comes from. Do you understand? So maybe they live in the church, they don't have a proper house or things like that. If you have that family setting that is also the church, you would have the responsibility to also do those things. Do you understand?
So here's the thing that I've seen when it comes to religious conservatism and sex, and this I would say with respect to much more than just more than one religion. So from Christianity to Islam to Buddhism to even the Koreans, who are almost are religious, to put it that way, because they basically have no religion until Christianity came in there. They're just a practical people who have lived their lives basically solving problems. But unlike the Chinese and the Indians, the Koreans can't seem to have a religion at all. Okay. But across all of these cultures, you would notice that there is a hushness about sex. right? To the degree where the person who speaks openly about it is considered as wayward,
or stigmatized
right?
somewhat.
First of all, considered as wayward.
Okay.
And once you're considered as wayward, what's the next thing? Is society begins to try to keep you at arm's length,
To shun you.
right?
Yeah.
And then for those who will not keep you at arm's length, they go, oh, that's the rebel, so let's go with the rebel.
And that's a bad term.
Yeah, do you get? But
because-
it's not supposed to be rebellion to talk about an order or a biological order that is set up by God Himself. In fact, I say usually that I think we should teach religion we should teach sex in our religious settings so that our people can be comfortable with the subject and will not be tempted easily with it outside.
Yeah.
Right? Let me use an example. In Christianity, you find that the most conservative girls are who? Usually Catholic girls, right? Take a Catholic girl into a marriage or where they're now comfortable to talk about
Thank
sex.
you for bringing that up,
Right?
because that was the next thing I was going to say. I was going to bring it in respect to therapy. Like when
Yeah.
when you enter a marriage and you don't know what to do. I know they normally give the whole guidance and counseling thing and everything,
Yeah.
but like the tease of how to do
that
production to
doesn't-
pleasure your man, for the man to pleasure
That's
the
not
woman
taught
and
in
stuff.
any guidance
Jen-
and counseling thing.
So no, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
we believe that anybody that goes for therapy is sick in the head, which is not the case. Do you understand? So anything
That's a
therapy
different
is
conversation.
church.
That's a different
So
conversation.
anything-
Let's just because it's wide.
Anything therapy is church. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So how do you now marry that to sex therapy? And I'm happy that you brought this up because that was the next thing that I was going to ask you. So please carry on. And then we
Okay.
can
So
marry it.
like I said, you find Catholic girls to be the most conservative Christian group of girls, right? Less likely to talk about sex in that regard, let me say. But when you take them into a marriage, for instance, where they're comfortable with sex, they become more open. But the challenge is that because sex has been made to be such a taboo, they don't learn much about it. And even after they're comfortable with it, they still feel like it's
Off.
it's a sneaky thing or it's a bad
Dirty
thing to
thing.
you know
It's a
exactly
dirty
to
thing.
go learning about sex or how to pleasure their partners and that kind of
I
thing,
remember
you know.
tallying with what you're saying. I remember having a conversation with someone. The husband was complaining that the wife doesn't like giving him oral sex and he enjoys it. And that was because he had started lusting after somebody outside, but he hadn't done anything. So he was trying to, why are you going outside when you can actually have this conversation with the... So
Partner.
he said he had tried to have it, and the wife said that she doesn't see how she can use the same mouth that she uses here. So she said three things: that she can't see how she uses the same mouth to give him oral sex that she used to kiss her babies, and then praise God. So do you get? So
This reminds me of a situation that, a few years ago where this was brought to church though. Back then, it was a Catholic couple, and it was a situation where the one partner insisted that they had to ask God first, you know, and God had to approve before they could have sex.
yeah,
You know, you heard, so you heard that story back then, yeah. But it was so sad because the young man had been raised a Catholic. He had been faithful his whole life in the belief that when I get married, okay, so no sex outside marriage. When I get married, I will have sex. Then at his honeymoon, the wife goes on her knees to pray to ask God whether they should have sex, and he was just sitting there wondering what's he supposed to do with himself, you know? And she said God did not say they should, so they didn't. So they spent their honeymoon. You know, but that's the situation
I
of
don't know
some people.
if I should laugh or I should just, add the person to my own prayer.
You know, it's sad and it's painful and it's all of those things mixed together, but that's the reality of how religion affects some people.
Yes.
Is that what has already been ordained by God becomes something that we have to wrap inside of piety before it can be done. whereas it was already a pious act to be able to do it within the bounds of marriage. That's authorized already. It's like saying, oh, I went to uni to get a degree. Then you now start saying, they say I should bring my degree to get this job, but you already have it now. But no, I need to go and talk to my VC to know whether I can use this certificate to, like, do you get, like, you already have the license too. Yes, you have been given the license. So if marriage was, say for instance, like uni, you've already graduated. Literally, you have a certificate. So if you were passing,
so
you are legal. You could have been, you get, like, if you were writing exams before graduation, now you already graduated. You can write it anyhow. It doesn't matter anybody. Nobody will fail you, you know. But unfortunately, that's it.
So another thing that I wanted us to talk about is how religion also affects medical checkups that are in tune to sex. So like the typical pap smear, cervical screen, prostate screening, because again, it's not their partner that is checking them. This is a private, secret
someone
place.
else.
Do you understand? And it could be that something is festering, it could be that it's not. Sometimes you just need to check regularly. And there are times when you actually see signs, but they leave it till the dying end.
All right, so and having done with the Catholic girls, I want to talk about Muslim girls. And my point is, as like their Catholic counterparts, they are also known to be very conservative. You know, Catholic girls are conservative. Muslim girls are known to be conservative. In fact, so conservative that it's hard to think of them and sex in the same thought, you know. But there's another side that people like to say that they are under the hijab, they are the freakest people out there. I cannot confirm this. All I can say is this, that there's no fire without smoke.
True.
Right? The Indians, on the other hand, have demonstrated that rather than leave this subject to be a mystic thing that people just go trying to research and whatever, they made it easy for everybody. What did the Indians do? Sex is a good thing. Let us create the Kama Sutra. And they gave the whole world a manual on how to have sex.
And still with your energy and
precisely.
spirituality.
So there's all sorts of things in it. Find what you're comfortable with and practice it, so that you're not a complete greenhorn anymore. You're not looking for ways of pleasing your partner anymore. It's that you're discovering and you're studying and you're discovering and you're studying, because at the end of the day, the best approach to learning about sex is in discovering with your partner. So there's no better way. This conservatism goes as far as even affecting medical practices. You know, so like amongst the houses, we find that, or rather, let me say the Muslims in the northern part of Nigeria, we find that a young woman can be suffering from, say, VVF, and she's not taken to the hospital. She suffers this thing through debilitating illness for months, sometimes even years, until she starts to stink. And once she starts to stink, which is a very advanced stage of the disease, that's when they start, everybody then agrees, let's take her to the hospital. But I've heard circumstances where a young woman had VVF, was taken to the hospital, and the husband arrives and then sees that the gyno is a man and tells her, get up, we're going. You want to touch my wife? No.
So they don't even mind for the person to
They don't realize, I don't think it's that they don't mind, I think it's that they don't realize how
at what cost
that
decision.
Yes, to the life of the person there, you know, for that singular act of, should I call it morality? I don't know what to call it, but yes, for that singular act of morality or piety, I think piety is the word. In seeking to be pious, they put the life of the women in danger.
Okay.
Do you get? And it's not just that. It's, I mean, I remember when what was redeemed in Lekki, where they first had this conversation with young women about examining their breasts, and some of the youngers were giggling and like, why would I be touching my breast? I'm like,
why would I be letting someone else touch my breast?
No, this was even self-examination, you know, at the time, over cancer and things like that. And they were all giggling and stuff like that. For me, in that very instance, what I saw was an opportunity to educate.
Yeah.
Do you get?
And that stems from the fact of masturbation, having those images, how you're
Thank
already
you.
sinning if
So
you
now that's
see.
the thing is, yes, because what it means is most likely the only thing they relate with such sensations is the acts they're not supposed to talk about.
Yes, which is supposed to be evil.
Which is why they giggle.
It's a sin.
You get. So if, however, it is made to be a much easier conversation,
No longer
then
taboo.
I don't think they would link a medical examination to a sexual act. You know.
So we barely have time, but I just have to ask this one question.
Go ahead.
Do you believe that sex, there's something called energy that is passed through sex? Because I always hear people who say you leave part of yourself in someone, and depending on how many people you sleep with, that you leave a different part of your energy, and you can be corrupted negatively or some.
All the things that I've read and I've studied, this is one thing I'm certain of,
Okay.
is that the ultimate form of intimacy is sex, right? And what it means is that you allow yourself at your most vulnerable to allow yourself to have sex with another person. So when it comes to the exchange of energies, lots of religions have their versions of it. The Buddhists and the Hindus, I think, would say that there's a transfer of chakra or whatever. You know, there's all that talk. I don't know if we'll ever know what the reality of is, because in the things of the spirit.
But it's also used to hold women into piety, like to be faithful, but not the men. That's the thing. So it's one-sided.
To be honest, a lot of the rules that are created around piety and sex are usually mostly targeted at women. I know it's not what should be, but that's the reality of what is, you know. So I'm not going to pretend that a lot of these rules are done to balance both ways. No, they don't. Most of the rules that are done by society, that are given by society concerning sex, are usually you're focused on the woman, you know. And sometimes I think I know why. And I think it's because in almost every setting, the upcoming generation are more likely to talk to a woman. Let's use this for example. Here we are talking about sex. Who am I talking to?
A man.
I'm talking to a woman. Do you get? It's a much easier conversation to have with a woman than to have with a man. And as someone said, the reason is because in the biological order of things, and you can go out and check this, a man doesn't get to choose his sexual partner. It's a woman who chooses. A man asks. If a woman says no, he moves on to look for the next one. So in this situation, it's the woman, is always the woman. Okay. It's the woman who decides. A man cannot go and just, oh, that woman, stick with that. No, if she doesn't agree.
So that's consent.
That's pretty much consent.
But that's a different conversation for
you
another
get.
time.
But
yeah.
what it means is that biology already created consent as a concept even before we named it, and gave that right to a woman. Right?
I very like.
Pretty much, you know, and gave that right to a woman. Now we are only giving that concept a name in these latter years and calling it concept and all that, but biology already had it there. If we taught our people this, then women would realize that they actually have more power in a sexual relationship than the man. But what women have been led to believe, and unfortunately lots of religions have promoted this, is that they are the vulnerable receiver of the sexual end. They have no say. No. Biologically, the way the order of things, the way life's been created, that right to choose a partner was never given to man.
Wow. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much. You have really given us a lot to think, to ponder, to have conversations. So thank you. Wow. I do hope that after watching this episode, that this would actually now become a conversation starter. So just imagine just telling some really nice person, do you know that you have the right for me to say hello to you? So, but anyway, I hope you really took things out of this. You really enjoyed this conversation and it has left you wanting more, so you could go and do your own research and have conversations with friends and family. Thank you so much for being with us, and see you on the next episode. Bye.